Hey guys, 29 Marine here with another video. What? Another video? Yes. As a matter of fact, yes, and I'm going to have another one after this too. Probably not today, but soon. Soon. Anyway, what this is another Q&A that one of you guys sent in. You know who you are, and I figure we'll just hop to it. Looks like there's about, I don't know, 15-ish, 20 questions, somewhere in that range. So let's just hop right in. What did I want to do before the military? Honestly, nothing. Like, the military and the Marine Corps was my goal. That was what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do, and I was content. Like, once I got there, that was it. I really didn't have my eye on anything else. How old was I when I enlisted? I was actually 17 when I enlisted. I enlisted after my junior year of high school, and that would have been 2004. 2004. What on-brand services did I enlist in? Purely the Marine Corps. It's the only one that interested me. Now, knowing what I know about the different branches and kind of what they offer, I would have probably considered the Air Force as well to do the PJ program that they have, because it's a super legit bunch of folks over there, and I work with several of them, and they're all just badass dudes. But yeah, at that time, Marine Corps, that's it. I got out as a sergeant, E5, Echo 5. What was your first day at BCT like? I'm going to assume you mean like MCT, like the combat training stuff. It was cool, yet also not cool, if that could be a thing. It was cool because I felt like I was finally getting into some real training, that Marines are supposed to do. Like, we didn't that first day, right? Like, it's just checking in and paperwork and stuff, but I'm like, you know what, I'm here. We're doing it, we're moving forward. But it was not cool because you're still treated as though you're in boot camp to an extent. Not nearly as strict on some things, but I wasn't treated like I figured I should be, at that point. But that's just more a personal issue than anything else, really. What conflicts, battles, war were you involved in? I served in Iraq. Went over to Iraq, and we were kind of all over the place. I was in a city called Barwana, which is just south of the Haditha Dam. Went to a city called Rawa, and ended up, we drove all over. We were in Al-Assad for a little bit, and then we ended up going down to a city called Rutbah, Rutbah, I think, way down by in the southwest corner of the country, down by Syria, and that's where we spent back half of our deployment. And that was the diciest of all of them. That was kind of where the bad folks were doing bad folks things. Do I have a political opinion on the war I was involved in? Not really. I'm kind of the opinion in general that we should not be fighting other people's wars for them. Not every little thing, if a huge World War III type situation kicks off, then sure, let's get in there and get involved. But kind of these ones that are contained to a country, or possibly two countries, to me, it's not worth the blood of our folks to go and send them there for those sort of fights. I think the men and women in those countries need to stand up, against whether it's a dictator, if it's just the government in general is getting out of control, or whatever it is. I believe that people should be willing to stand up and fight their own shit there, and not leave, cower, back down, whatever term you want to use for that. But outside that, I mean, we have no proof either way if the war, if there really were weapons of mass destruction, if there was this and that and all the other reasons. And so I just stay out of it. It's, above my pay grade. In my opinion, it's not going to change shit about it anyway. So, what's the hardest / easiest thing about serving? For me, that has changed over time. The hardest part, I mean, frankly, when I was in, nothing about it was necessarily hard for me once you kind of understood. There's definitely a learning curve, right, to your job and stuff, but it all kind of became so routine, especially with how often that we were out in the field, that I didn't ever really think of it as hard. More annoying. Probably if anything that was difficult to handle or deal with, maybe on the mental aspect of it, would have been would have just been the formations that take 10 years to fucking get over with, and you're just standing out there, especially in 29 Palms, it's 110 degrees out, like 120 degrees sometimes, and you're just like, can I go home? Can I get off work? Can I go to the barracks? That was probably the most difficult. I mean, like, I don't know. And the easiest thing for me would have been, I don't know, being away from family. Like, that's never been an issue for me. Although I think now it would be. So the hardest thing was that. The easiest, I think, was staying away from family. And I think those kind of get changed now. If I had to do it with my kids and stuff now, I think that'd be really hard to be away from them, like for a deployment. And I never really understood. I definitely have a lot more respect now for guys that I deployed with that had, wife and kids and all that stuff, and they had to leave them. Especially the kiddos, especially when they're really young, because you're going to miss out on a lot, depending on the timeline that you're gone. You can miss, them crawling. You can miss their first steps. A lot of guys miss the actual births of their kids. And yeah, I think that would be the toughest part now for me. And in terms of easiest outside of, just being away from family, I don't know, man. I enjoyed the fact that things were regimented to an extent. I liked that you had your day laid out in front of you. You got up, you got your workout in, which at the time I hated getting up and working out. And frankly, I still hate getting up and working out. But at least then you knocked it out. It was done, and you did whatever you're going to do the rest of the day. I don't know. I really enjoyed that part of it. Do you ever have any regrets about enlisting whilst serving? No, I did not. I mean, day one of boot camp, I was like, why the fuck did I want to be here? But you get over that pretty quick and kind of get down to it. And for me, that was most of it. Was I'd have those day or two of kind of second guessing my life choices up until that point, but there was never any long term regrets. And I definitely don't hate the military. I don't hate the Marine Corps. Some guys kind of get out a little bitter, and that's just not my style. The Marine Corps it's never anything personal. If something happens to you, it's the way the Marine Corps works. It's the way the military in general works. And so I try to take that approach to it when I think back about it, especially. What's the craziest thing that happened to you while serving? I don't know. I mean, we had a lot of crazy different situations. The one that always sticks in my mind, and it wasn't even... I mean, looking back now, and kind of especially the job that I do now, it wasn't really that insane of a situation, but at the time, it was definitely pretty crazy. And some of you guys have heard this story before. If you've watched some of my previous videos, I did it was a story time on it. I did something on it. But anyway, one of our dudes, it was about 115 out. It had been 115 all week. We've been out for the entire week shooting for the infantry while they were off doing infantry stuff. And people just started dropping out because of the heat. They're getting heat exhaustion and just kind of feeling it. And one of our dudes, he's one of the best workers, and literally one of the hardest working Marines I ever worked with. He was my powder guy, so he got me the charge that we put in the gun that actually made it go boom. And all of a sudden he wasn't up there with the powder. It was just three of us running the gun at that point. Myself, a buddy of mine named Carbomb, and then Curtis. And all of a sudden Curtis wasn't up there, and so I was like, what the fuck? And I was cussing. I'm like, dude, come on, we need to get this fucking powder up there. And I go back around the ammo trailer where he had been working at, and he was just face down in the sand, not moving. And so I'm like, what the fuck? So I flip him over, and I check, and he's not breathing, and he didn't have a pulse, or if he did, it was super, super light. And so I called for the corpsman and started doing compressions. Corpsman got an airway on him and got a stronger pulse back, which I don't know if that was just from getting a solid airway or if my compressions at the time did anything. I'm sure they were fucking atrocious because I didn't really... We'd done CPR training, right? But not like the training that I have now. Like I know how to do legit compressions on somebody. And it's worked. Like we brought back a lot of people. But... either way at the time, I gave it my best shot, but it was probably pretty crappy compressions. But either way, we got a pulse back on him. He doctored a temperature on him, a rectal temperature, and his temperature was like 109 or some shit. 108, 109 is kind of the numbers that are popping into my head, and which is just fucking insane. So we stripped him. He's butt ass naked, and then our CO brought over. He had a huge ice chest that he carried in his Humvee that he had, put Gatorade and whatever else in. So we dumped Curtis in that, picked him up, laid him in that, and then we picked the whole thing up and put him in a Humvee. While all this was going on, our CO called in a CH-47 that happened to be two of them were training in the area, and so they asked him to come help us out. So they landed just right next to our position, right next to our guns, and we ended up loading him on there, and the doc went with them. I stayed because I had to keep shooting my gun, but he got medevaced out, and he ended up living through that. He passed a couple years later, but that was from something else. It wasn't from the heat stroke, but at the time, it was such a blur of activity, and it was kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if that really counts, but it's definitely when people ask me that question, that is what pops into my mind. What was the day-to-day life while serving? So, artillery has kind of its own way of doing things, I think, compared to a lot of other jobs in the Marine Corps. And so we went to the field a lot. Like my first year in the fleet, like I got there just after January, like January 3rd or 4th. Of 2006, I got 29 pumps, and that first year I spent right around 300 days in the field. So we didn't get a lot of time off. Like we were out working on those guns all the time. That's like all we did. But if you're somewhere other than 29 Palms, chances are you're going to work a relatively normal week. You'll go to the field for a few days, maybe a week or two at a time. Be out there and shoot. And then, you come back, clean everything up, and put it away. If you're not in the field, your day is probably going to consist of getting up at 4:30-ish, 5-ish, somewhere in there, and you're going to go work out. And that'll be, up to your unit on what your workout's going to be. But you'll go do that. You'll go work out, run, do whatever. And then from there, you'll go to wherever your office is, or for us, it was the gun park where our howitzers were. And we normally have a little quick formation. You have a chance to get breakfast, have a quick formation to make sure everybody knows what the hell you're doing that day. And then for us, it usually involved going to the gun park and cleaning the guns, pulling the gear out, scrubbing the gear down, doing some training on it. And then lunch would come. You go out to lunch for an hour, and then right back to it. And we would just do that till the end of the day, and then we'd get off, hopefully, generally, around 5-ish, and then started up again the next day. It was a pretty straightforward deal, and if you went out in the field, it was definitely a lot like a normal job in the civilian world, for sure. Where am I at here? What do I think of officers and fellow Marines? Officers were okay. I mean, we had a couple really, really good officers during my time in that I'd follow those dudes even now anywhere. But we also had some really, really shitty ones. And same with the Marines, like just the normal enlisted guys. And it varies, and you're gonna get both. For better or worse, you're gonna get both. But the vast majority of dudes were cool. They worked hard, and everybody bitched, and I was definitely up there with people that bitched. Which if I had any regret really of how I served, I mean, to go back to that question, it'd probably be like I complained too much about shit that was way beyond anyone's control, and I should have just sucked it up. But you can only improve, and I try to change that now with life because there's really no point. especially when you're around people you work with. Like, it's just going to bring everybody down. And there's no point to that. Yeah, so, hit or miss on a lot of the guys, but the vast majority, I'd say, we're pretty solid dudes. Were you always on the move traveling? Yes and no. I mean, I did 2 deployments, one to Okinawa, which for 6 months, which was really more of a vacation than it was anything else. And then Iraq, which was less of a vacation. But outside that, like, we were in 29 Palms, but like I said, we trained so much that we were out in the field, and we were out there, we were moving all the time. Because artillery, the way it works, you shoot a bunch of rounds, you got to be able to pick your shit up and move before the enemy counterfires and blows your ass up. So yeah, in that sense, we were moving quite a bit. What'd you do to pass time? We didn't have anything to do. Anything you could think of. We'd fight, like, not like anger fight, but like everybody would just start battling. We'd do pranks on each other. Some guys would bring cards. I'd read. I had a lot of books. Like, I've read thousands of books in my life, and the Marine Corps definitely took up a good chunk of those because there was a lot of downtime. Yeah, and there's a lot of shenanigans, which is why the Marine Corps has so many stupid rules, because when Marines get bored, they really do some dumb shit. And so that was a big part of it. How the other guys entertain themselves? Same deal. I was one of the few that really read. A lot of the guys I worked with didn't read a whole ton. So they'd fuck around, and try to nap. We do a lot of napping in the field. If depending on our command, some would let us, some wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, that was the main bit of it. But fucking with each other was a big one. Did you continue to pursue what you wanted to be before? Well, considering the fact that the Marine Corps was the only thing I'd wanted to do. Like, I literally had planned on making a full 20-year career out of it. But obviously that didn't happen. But so when I got out, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I went through a wide range of shit, from like police officer to teacher to IT. There's another one. I can't think of it. And I started going to school for a variety of different shit, and none of it just panned out. Like, none of it really interested me, or like the starting pay. Because I had our first kid almost right when I got out, because apparently I'm bad at not having kids. I mean, I have 3 already. But anyway, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got a job doing security, which was a good job. It paid well for super easy work. And it took me a long time to decide that I wanted to be a firefighter. And so once I decided, you know what, hey, this is a cool ass job, and now I'm of the opinion that it is the greatest job in the world. But like, I focused on that, and then here as you guys know, if you've been watching, I've been doing it for a year and 3 months now, and I love it. Like, as a matter of fact, I just got off work this morning, and kids are sleeping, and so I'm doing this. So yeah, it's an awesome job. Was it a difficult transition from military to civilian life? In some senses, yes, and others, no. I think talking to people was the most challenging. People in the civilian world are really sensitive to everything. Literally everything. And in the military, that just wasn't the case. And like, dudes would get upset at shit, like they weren't immune to getting butthurt about stuff, but like, no one took it personally, really. And if you did, you would just go, if they did, they would just you'd fight, and then it'd be over. You're like, oh, well, all right, cool. And so I had to really learn how to back off the cussing and like the name calling and just harassing people. Because in the Marine Corps, man, we harass the living hell out of each other about everything. And that's not a thing that civilians take very well. And so I had to really, really, really back off of that. And for a while, I was pretty depressed. I mean, I got lucky, I would say, lucky / hard work, I suppose, on getting the job that I did. That really helped kind of give me a good foundation for pursuing, what took me 8 years to figure out, but pursuing firefighting. And so, I forgot where I was going with that, but I know a lot of guys struggle with that kind of thing. And I was really, that's what I was saying. I was really kind of depressed for a long time doing that job, and I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't so much the work. The work was good. It really was easy, but it was relatively rewarding, depending on the day. But I didn't have, and it took me a long time to realize it, but I didn't have that camaraderie that you have with the guys and gals that you serve with and that you're living with and dealing with some really shitty situations with. They become closer than family in a lot of cases, and I just didn't have that here in the civilian world. But I think in the fire service, that is a big component of it, especially once you get a crew, like you work with those folks for a third of your life. Like you spend 24 hours a day every 3 days with these people, and that's huge. And so I started to develop that again with the people that I went through the academy with, and that I've kind of come up with, and I realized that there's a big portion of what I'm missing. And so now when it comes to guys that I know are struggling, that got out more or less when I did, I try to tell them, hey, look into the fire service, man. Like, it doesn't always pay super great depending on where in the country you are, but you're going to get that. And I think a lot of guys are missing that aspect of it. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of a bit of a ramble, but yeah. All right. What advice would I give to a younger generation who may or may not want to enlist? One, you need to develop some thick skin. Like I said, the Marine Corps, especially, that's really the only one I can vouch for, but I'm sure it's not way too different in the other branches. But people are going to harass you. They're going to make fun of you about shit that you don't want to be made fun of. They're going to, it's going to suck to an extent, and you just need to develop that thick skin, not take it personal, not cry and get all butthurt and whiny and shit about it. Like, just don't go there. Just don't. Be willing to put in the work. The military, regardless of the branch, you're going to have to work your ass off to achieve your goals in it. And the Marine Corps is very, very competitive. So if you want to get up in rank, it's tough, man. They're only making it tougher because everybody wants to get promoted. Everyone wants to go to those schools that are like the cool stuff, and so just get in there, put your head down, and just do the work. Plain and simple. What advice do I give to myself, like my prior self? Pretty much the same exact freaking advice. Plus, don't fucking whine about everything. It's probably the biggest one. And yeah, same sort of deal here. Anyone joining the military kind of advice. And I think this applies probably to even people that are just trying to figure out what they want to do, like with life in general, whether it's the military or not. Take some time to go be by yourself, whether you just hop in your car and you drive, or you go for just a nice long walk or a hike, or whatever it is that you do, or that's whatever options available to you. Go and have some time to yourself, and really sit down and just think of what you are truly passionate about. Because I think, and not everybody knows. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I knew for a long time. But I know there are people that do know what they're passionate about, and for whatever reason they're afraid to admit it, or they're afraid to pursue it, or whatever. But figure out what that is, because in the end, you are not going to be happy with your work, with your life, with whatever else, if you are not truly enjoying what you do for work. And for some people, that's the military. They love it. They will do that shit for 20, 30 years, and they will love every second of it. Other people don't. Some people, they're passionate about other things, and that's totally cool. But you need to figure out what that is. And if you want to do the military first, one, so you can get college paid for after, or so that you can just get that experience under your belt, you can move forward from there. If you do 4 years right out of high school, you're only 22 when you're done. And you got 4 years of military experience. You've probably got a couple deployments. You're going to have college that's paid for as long as you got out honorably, obviously. And that's huge. And employers look for people that have served in the military because they know that at the very least you're a hard worker, you can take orders, and you'll get the job done. And so if you want to do that and then focus on whatever your passion is, that's awesome. But just know what that is and go for it, regardless of how weird it may seem to other people, regardless of how impossible or challenging it might be. Who cares? If it's what you are truly going to enjoy doing, work at it. And eventually that's what I did with the fire service. I did it right out. My father-in-law was a firefighter for like 35 years, and so I rode out with his crew, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. And so for me, that helped because I figured it out right then and there that day that this is what I wanted to do. And so I made that my focus. I still worked my other job while I went got my EMT, while I went and did all this other stuff I had to do. And I just went after it. And I knew it was going to be tough. Getting into the fire service is competitive as hell. Like for us, there was 12 positions, and they interviewed like 130 people. They only took the top 130 out of almost like 2,000 people that applied. That was the number I was told. It was around 2,000 of scores that were submitted to them. 2,000 people for 12 positions. Like, it's insanely competitive. But I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I just kept going after it. And if I could do it, trust me, if I could do it, you guys can do it. So figure out what you want to do and make that your goal. All right, guys. I am through all the questions. As you know, I don't do a ton of videos anymore, but if there's something that perks my interest or that I really think you guys should know about, I'll definitely be putting it on here. If I get a good chunk of questions like this from somebody again, I'd be more than happy, as long as they're different questions, obviously, but I'd be more than happy to do another one of these kind of videos. And yeah, thank you, Chris, for submitting these. Hopefully I answered them somewhat decently for you. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Semper Fi. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. If you liked it, toss that like button down below, smash it up, and subscribe if you liked it even more. And if not, let me know why you didn't like it. You know, you say you're ugly or you're mean or something, and I will work on it. But yeah, appreciate you watching. Catch you next time.